I'm Charles Goolsby. I'm from the southwestern part of Virginia, from a small town called Emory, and I have been painting since I was probably 13 years old, and this is my current show of landscape work, and it includes paintings from approximately 12 years to the current time. Over the past 12 years, I have painted really primarily in a few locations. So one is in Tennessee, where my parents-in-law live. And in Tennessee, where they live, there is a place called the Tellico Dam and the Fort Loudon Dam. It's part of the Tennessee Valley network of electrical production. And so anyway, it's a TVA site that's been completely changed over and is now man-made. And this painting is one that was started on location there. And it looks at the Tennessee River, and it also has this structure, which I think is some sort of security device, but I'm not absolutely certain. But I'm very interested in the way that human-made structures kind of interrupt the landscape, and I also think they're kind of beautiful, actually. So that's one thing that I have been exploring. So this painting started with a place that's not too far from our home where we live, and it's Hungry Mother State Park, and they've got a swimming area on the lake. And this structure is a diving platform, and what was kind of curious to me is they had drained the lake so that it could be dredged, and it seemed like, okay, I've never seen it that way before. Like with the water down so low, it kind of exposed the bottom part of it. And I used to dive off of that platform, and now that I know how it's not really as deep as I think it should be, I'll never dive off of that platform again. I thought it was just interesting because when the water was lowered in the landscape, it revealed something to me that I'd never seen before, and I looked at it in a different way. So I like the geometric structure of the platform against the organic parts of the landscape, and I really, the light is fictitious, like all of that yellow and all of that blue, all of that, those strong brush strokes in the sky, those are fictional, they kind of get made up. But the platform itself is something that I consider pretty realistically rendered, so there's a contrast between the two things. This is a site that I experienced and went back to repeatedly over a number of years, and it's one that I was very familiar with. I think I picked it this particular time because of that change, the shift in the water level that I was talking about. I do like to explore the idea, like in this one here, which is again from Tennessee. I like to explore the idea that we change our landscape, like we consume our landscape. We make our landscapes do what we want our landscapes to do. So I like the idea very much of dealing with the fact that we change our landscapes, and I try to capture that in my paintings and make viewers aware of that. And I do like this kind of like strong geometry contrasted against the more organic things. A lot of these were painted, strangely enough, when I was on a residency in Paris and worked from photographs. And the only way I could really bring them back was to put them in a tube. So they had to be done on paper. So it's very practical. I prefer really to work bigger, because when I work bigger, I can actually get like the sweep of the brush work that I like. I use bigger brushes, and I have more territory that I can work in. So this one is called Industrial Park 1. The reason it's called Industrial Park 1 is because there is an Industrial Park 2, but for this particular exhibit, I brought the one that was my favorite. And I painted this from photographs that I took. And I took the photographs in a place that's only about a mile from my house. And what had happened is several years ago, a tornado came through. It was an F3 tornado, and it pretty much destroyed the industrial park. So when we look at this painting and we see the concrete kind of loading area with the yellow barrier buffers or whatever you call those things. That's actually what remained of essentially a large metal factory. And when I went there, and I didn't expect it, I just would go to this site from time to time to look at it. When I went there on this particular day, it had really rained hard, and there was water all over the concrete slabs. And it was actually, I spent about 3 hours photographing it. And it was really kind of strange how beautiful it was with the light and with the color and with the clouds and that kind of thing. And it's sort of like it was something more than just a concrete slab. It sort of like opened up a whole sky on the concrete. And then I made the painting from the photographs that I took. The photographs I took were done with an older camera. It was a Hasselblad camera, so it gave me a square format, and I wanted to paint it in a rectangular format, so I had to imagine the left and the right sides of this. And then there's a little interesting thing right here, I think, and I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, but I painted in the edge of the film at that particular part of the painting, and that's what's emerging through the landscape. So I've sort of on one level wanted to be the landscape, but on the other level I wanted to recognize my source, which was the photography in which I originally started from. I think the brushwork adds a level of motion to it. I think it adds a level of like maybe the feeling of wind in the work. I think it adds a bit of me into the work. I think painting is an interaction between me and the object. I think of the painting as both like an illusion, which you can sort of see into it, but I also see it as a physical object. And I think the texture emphasizes the kind of physical presence of the thing as a painting. This one is Early Departure 1. And it is a painting that I started and pretty much finished when I was on a residency in Paris. But I was working from a photograph that I took from Holden Beach, North Carolina. And this is a place where my family goes each year. But on Saturday mornings when we leave the beach, we always try to leave at something ridiculous like 4 in the morning so that we don't have traffic on the way home. And I like the idea that, the beach here is still early. It's so early in the morning, it's actually still nighttime. It's still dark and that kind of thing. And I like the fact that, like, at that time of the day, there are no people in it. And so it makes it a scene where it's just the viewer and the scene. One reason I wanted to talk about this one a little bit is because that's going to lead to my next conversation, which is Early Departure 2, which is a little bit different on the other side. So this is Early Departure 2. I feel like I changed a lot of things when I went to this version of it. One thing I certainly changed was the coloration of it. So I went from the blue hues of how the actual photograph looked, and changed it to my own color scheme and changed the lighting of it a little bit. And the bigger expanse offered me a chance to get in and include some more of the distance buildings, and it included an opportunity to get some of the structures in, like the electrical boxes or the fencing that surrounds the trash can area and that kind of thing. And it gave me an opportunity to really explore some of the texture and the foliage and that sort of thing. So when I went to the bigger canvas, I just sort of wanted to I wanted to show you anyway, I want to show viewers how different it can be. So even though I work from my photography, it doesn't mean like I'm an absolute slave to my photography. I let the paint take over. I let the painting become the painting. And that's when I think they start to become really, really better. Going to a larger scale gives me a chance to be freer with my mark making. And I like that idea that painting is an accumulation of marks. So when you put one thing onto an empty canvas and you make a mark, then the next mark has to have a relationship to that first mark, and then you have to have a relationship to the next mark, and so on and so on. But by the time you conclude a painting, you've probably made at least 3,000 to 4,000 decisions about everything that's going to go in it or be taken out of it. I don't know if I see them as gloomy. If I have to give an elevator speech, I tell people that my landscapes are kind of morose, but there's just a little bit of hope in them. I think that's probably kind of like a romantic idea from the 19th century. It's funny when they start out, like this one obviously was a nighttime scene, so it's going to be dark anyway. That was actually, I've done a couple of nighttime scenes. That's hard for me because in daylight you have one source of light, and at night the light becomes very subjective because it's all artificial, and shadows go in all kinds of different directions because of the placement of the different artificial lights, whether it's a street light or a house light or whatever. But in this one, for example, the darkness comes from the night. In this one over here, the sky really was that dramatically dark with clouds, you know, a storm off in the distance, while, you know, the beach house along with the swimming pool and the deck out back were still not being necessarily affected by that storm. So, but I do like the tension that it creates. What I hope the viewer takes away from it is that there are extraordinary things or extraordinary moments that we should be aware of during times that are fairly ordinary experiences for us. We take advantage of our landscape. We take advantage of our space that we're in. We just aren't necessarily conscious all the time about where we are, but there are special places and times in those ordinary experiences.